Spring Television. Ours it is.
Here are the top stories of the news. Gunmen kill customary court chairman in Imo State, bringing court sitting to abrupt end. Court orders INEC to accept nominations of Labour Party candidates in 24 states of the Federation. On the foreign scene, Vladimir Putin compares Russia's invasion of Ukraine to fight against Nazi Germany. Good afternoon and welcome to Spring News at 12 on Western Spring Television. My name is Okweyemuni. Gunmen have murdered Nnaemeka Ugboma, the chairman of Ejemekuru Customary Court in the Oguta local government area of Imo State. According to reports, he was killed by gunmen on motorcycles while presiding a court session. The incident brought the court sitting to an abrupt end as lawyers, court staff, and litigants fled. Chairman of the Owerri branch of the Nigerian Bar Association, Ugochukwu Alina, who confirmed the killing, said that the branch would communicate the public on its actions over the incident. In Kaduna State, soldiers of the 1 Division of the Nigerian Army yesterday rescued 30 kidnapped victims on the Kaduna-Birnin-Gwari Road. Acting Public Relations Officer of the division, Lieutenant Colonel Musa Yahaya, who disclosed this in a statement, said the troops encountered the bandits while escorting the Chief of Defense Training and Operations, who was on operational visit. According to him, the troops engaged the bandits and overpowered them, forcing the criminals to withdraw. He said the troops recovered 2 motorcycles from the hoodlums. An Assistant Inspector General of Police and head of the National Central Bureau, Interpol Nigeria, Garba Umar, has disclosed why the federal government has failed to extradite a former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Dezani Alisi Madueke, for trial over corruption allegations. Mr. Umar, while appearing before an House of Representatives ad hoc committee, alleged that the British government turned down the request to extradite Mrs. Alisi Madueke. The AIG, while being grilled by members of the committee, noted that the Nigerian government followed due process in seeking mutual legal assistance from the United Kingdom, but the demand was ignored as the ex-minister also went to court in the UK to frustrate the process. He explained why the move was successful in the cases of a former chairman of a defunct pension reform task team, Abdul Rashid Meena, and the former Attorney General of the Federation, Bello Adoke. In other news, ahead of the 2023 general election, Justice Inyang Ekwo of the Federal High Court in Abuja has ordered the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to accept the nominations of candidates of the Labour Party in 24 states of the Federation. The court orders that the electoral body must accept the list of the candidates either manually or through its electronic nomination portal. Delivering judgment, Justice Ekwo held that INEC violated Section 31, 33, and 36 of the Electoral Act 2022 in rejecting the Labour Party candidates in the affected states on the ground of non-functional of its nomination portal. The 24 states affected by the court order are Kwara, Plateau, Nasarawa, Lagos, Kaduna, Oyo, Benue, Bauchi, Ebonyi, and Ekiti State. The rest are Katsina, Bayelsa, Niger, Rivers, Sokoto, Akwa Ibom, Gombe, Borno, Osun, Adamawa, and Cross River States. The Labour Party at last year in November conducted substitution nomination for its candidates who withdrew from the 2023 general election in the affected states. In the meantime, leader of Afenifere, Ayo Adebanjo, says the survival of Nigeria is tied to Peter Obi of the Labour Party winning the 2023 presidential election. Chief Adebanjo said this after a meeting of a Southern and Middle Belt Leaders Forum in Abuja. The forum also announced its endorsement of Mr. Obi after the meeting, describing him as the rock upon which Nigeria would stand. The Afenifere leader said electing the Labour Party candidate will show that Nigeria values ethnic and religious inclusion. Chief Adebanjo added that Mr. Obi is leading the crusade to get Nigerians out of the bondage of serious oppression. In Osun State, presidential candidate of All Progressives Congress, APC, Bola Tinubu, says it would support Osun to be a manufacturing and tourism paradise while creating jobs for the teeming youths. Speaking at the presidential rally in Osogbo, the state capital, he also took a swipe at Osun State Governor Ademola Adeleke and the People's Democratic Party, PDP, saying they are misbehaving in the state. Olayinka Ali was at the rally and filed in this report.
Nelson Mandela Freedom Park, Osogbo, venue for the All Progressives Congress APC presidential campaign, was filled to the brim on Thursday as party faithfuls and stalwarts were on ground to welcome the presidential candidate, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and his running mate, Senator Kashim Shettima. The All Progressive Congress presidential candidate, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, brought his message of renewed hope to Osun State, where he assured the people and party supporters of his commitment to create jobs for the unemployed and make credit available for business owners. Speaking in his native language, Yoruba, to the mammoth crowd who thronged the venue of the campaign, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu urged residents of Osun State to vote for him in the coming general election because no one can do it better than him. He said his administration would empower people with skills that will make them employable, while ensuring that the youth will no longer spend excessive years in the university due to lecturer strike action, stating that his pledge to the people will remain a binding covenant. Expressing his confidence on his victory ahead of the February 25 poll, Bola Tinubu insisted that he will win the election against all odds. He, however, urged Nigerians to get their PVCs as it is their only escape route from bad governance. Olayinka Ali, Western Spring Television News.
Elsewhere, no fewer than 3 persons have been confirmed dead and 21 others rescued from a building that collapsed in the Gwarinpa area of Abuja yesterday. The building, which was under construction along 7th Avenue in the Gwarinpa area of Abuja, collapsed around 11 a.m. A construction worker, Samuel Carroll, said the building was raised within 6 months. Another eyewitness, John Edwin, who lives in the area, said workers on the site, especially laborers, conveying blocks to the top were over 40. The Director of Development Control, Federal Capital Territory Administration, Mukhtar Galadima, said rescue operation was ongoing. Meanwhile, the FCT Commissioner of Police, Sadiq Abubakar, has vowed that all those still trapped in the building would be rescued. The CP who visited the scene assured that the police would provide necessary support to ensure the ease of the rescue operation. You're watching Spring News at Western Spring Television. We'll be right back after this break.
This iconic African presents the narrative of a man destined to exert an imperishable global influence in Western education. His was a story of a freeborn, captured and sold into slavery. He was born in Osogbo, a native Yoruba village near Iseyin in Okeogun axis of southwest Nigeria. Samuel Ajayi Crowther was the foundation student of Fora Bay College, Sierra Leone, the foremost university where the pioneer set of native Africans were educated. Samuel Ajayi Crowther's greatest contribution to humanity was his translation of the Holy Bible into the Yoruba language. The man who authored the Yoruba dictionary was also credited with the translation of English classic hymns into Yoruba and the Ekwere languages. Samuel Ajayi Crowther's private residence in Badagry, incidentally the first story building in Nigeria, is an archival museum dedicated to the memory of Africa's first bishop. Western Spring Television identifies Samuel Ajayi Crowther as a watershed character in history. The British Empire was the largest and the most powerful in the world. At its zenith, the empire embraced a quarter of the Earth's land surface and imposed her imperial majesty's rule on more than 458 million peoples across nations and continents. The empire took off with overseas possessions and trading posts established by England, spread over 3 million kilometers between 16th and early 18th century. Like previous empires, the British Empire began to crumble on its weight of overstretched territories and growing unrest in our various colonies. Today, the British Empire no longer exists. What is in place is the Commonwealth of Nations, a loose association of sovereign states which recognize the King of England as the titular head. Western Spring Television identifies the British Empire as a watershed empire in history. The Berlin Conference of 1884 defined the configuration of Africa, which hitherto existed as a continent of multiple kingdoms and empires under native rulers. The conference, otherwise referred to as Congo Conference, regulated European colonization and trade in Africa as initiated by German leader Otto von Bismarck. The Berlin Conference is often called the scramble for and partitioning of Africa, as each of the imperial powers carved separate portions of the continent for themselves without recourse to racial and cultural identities and differences. 137 years after the Berlin Conference was held, Africa remains a legitimized playground for European nations that sought to exploit its wealth and resources and manipulate its human capital to promote trade and investments of Western powers. Western Spring Television identifies Berlin Conference as a major event in history.
Welcome back on Spring News at 12 on Western Spring Television. Now to the rest of the story. President Muhammadu Buhari has barred government officials from using private emails for official purpose, while noting that the national policy on Nigeria government's second-level domains is a welcome step in this direction. He directed that all government officials should refrain from using private emails for official purposes. The federal public institutions must migrate their websites to the relevant government domains. According to a statement by presidential spokesman Femi Adesina, the president stated at the State House, Abuja, when he unveiled and launched 2 new policies developed by the Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy. President Buhari said the digital economy sector has been most successful in the diversification of the nation's economy, saving the federal government over 45.7 billion naira in its projects clearance. The Semi-Border Command of the Nigerian Customs Service have intercepted over 6 million fake American dollar notes in the Gbaji area of Lagos State. The notes, equivalent to 2.76 billion naira at official exchange rate, were intercepted from 4 suspects. Area controller of the command, Dera Nnadi, explained that the seizure was made by officers at a checkpoint along the border corridor. He added that at the point of interception, the smugglers promised to bribe the officers with $150,000 in original currency in order to allow for the fake currency passage. Now to the foreign scene, Vladimir Putin has compared Russia's invasion of Ukraine to the fight against Nazi Germany in a speech to mark the 80th anniversary of the conclusion of the Battle of Stalingrad. Citing Germany's decision to send tanks to Ukraine, the Russian president said history was repeating itself. Germany is one of the countries helping Ukraine defend its territory. Russia launched its bloody full-scale invasion almost 1 year ago, prompting Western countries to send weapons and aid to the government in Kiev. Speaking in Volgograd, the modern name for Stalingrad. Mr. Putin hinted that he could seek to move beyond conventional weapons.
Гитлера руками бандеровцев. Мы свои танки к их границам не посылаем. Но у нас есть чем ответить. И применением бронетехники дело не закончится. Все должны это понимать. Для тех, кто угрожает нам, видимо, для них непонятна простая истина. Весь наш народ, все мы росли и с молоком матери впитали в себя традиции нашего народа. Поколение победителей, которые своим трудом, потом и кровью создали нашу страну и передали ее нам в наследство. Стойкость защитников Сталинграда для российского воинства, для всех нас важнейший морально-нравственный ориентир. И наши солдаты и офицеры верны.
In Africa, children were injured yesterday when the railing collapsed at a stadium in Sierra Leone, where the president and first lady were distributing free sanitary pads. Videos on social media show crowds rushing out of a stadium in the city of Bo, with many carrying people who appeared to be injured. President Julius Maada Bio tweeted that the medical team was working assiduously to administer medical attention to the injured. The number of casualties was not immediately clear. A statement from the government's office of the press secretary said the accident happened when a short section of metal guardrail on one of the levels of a stadium came apart. China today said it will fully restore travel across its borders with Hong Kong and Macau next week, dropping COVID testing requirements and daily quotas after a lengthy pandemic separation. The semi-autonomous cities have both stuck to Beijing's zero-COVID strategy for nearly 3 years, splitting families, cutting off tourism, and suffocating businesses. The State Council's Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office said all remaining restrictions will be dropped starting midnight on February 6th, with group tours allowed to resume. Limited travel across the border between Hong Kong and mainland China resumed in January after Beijing abruptly axed its isolationist policy. And now talking business, Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, says President Muhammadu Buhari is not happy about the difficulties citizens are facing in getting the new Naira notes. Mrs. Ahmed said this while fielding questions from State House correspondents during the 65th edition of a State House briefing in Abuja. President Buhari had approved extension of the ongoing currency swap by 10 days, moving to the deadline from January 31st to February 10th. The minister said the federal government was concerned about the plight of the citizens on the currency swap, adding that the situation would not persist.
The hardship that the redesign is causing to the citizens, of course we are worried. We're not happy that citizens have to queue and struggle at bank ATMs to be able to get their cash. But this is a temporary solution. Let me just give you an analogy. If you have a wound, for you to be able to heal that wound, it needs to be dressed. And sometimes when you go to the hospital, they'll put iodine on the wound, and it is very painful. But it's necessary to do that to be able to get the wound to heal. So it's not easy, and Mr. President is not happy that citizens are really suffering, but we're convinced that it is something that needs to be done at this time.
Google and Apple have reported downbeat results for the last quarter of 2022 as Amazon beats expectations, but warned that the coming months will be uncertain and a difficult moment for big tech. The tech titans posted earnings as shares in Meta skyrocketed a day after it reported better results than expected and signaled spending and job cuts. The results follow weeks of unprecedented layoff rounds in the usually unassailable tech sector amidst pessimism about economic outlook. Google parent Alphabet's revenue of $76 billion in its fourth quarter and profit of $13.6 billion were below what it made in the same period a year earlier, with share prices falling more than 3% in aftermarket trade. To some sports stories, Poland's Sport and Tourism Minister Kamil Botniczuk says up to 40 countries could boycott the next Olympic Games, making the whole event pointless. His comments came after Poland, Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia jointly rejected an International Olympic Committee plan to allow Russians and Belarusians to compete in 2024. Ukraine has threatened to boycott the Paris Olympics if that occurs, but the IOC said any boycott would only punish athletes. Botniczuk said he believes it will be possible to build a coalition of 40 countries, including Great Britain, the United States, and Canada, to support a bloc on the IOC's plans before a meeting on the 10th of February. Australian tennis star Nick Kyrgios has admitted assaulting an ex-girlfriend but avoided a criminal conviction. The 27-year-old's guilty plea in a Canberra court came after his lawyers failed to have the charge dismissed on mental health grounds. The court added that Mr. Kyrgios pushed Chiara Passari onto the pavement during the row in Canberra in 2021. The magistrate called the incident a single act of stupidity or frustration when sparing him a criminal record. Mr. Kyrgios released a statement after ruling saying he was grateful to the court for dismissing the charges without conviction. To football, Real Madrid beat 10-man Valencia to cut Barcelona's lead at the top of La Liga to 5 points. Los Blancos took the lead through a stunning left-footed strike from Marco Asensio in the 52nd minute. Brazilian forward Vinicius Jr. celebrated his 200th Real appearance with his side's second goal 2 minutes later. Gabriel Paulista was shown a straight red card for the visitors in the 72nd minute for kicking out at Vinicius. France forward Benzema was substituted on the tarmac and walked off the pitch holding the back of his tie. Real travelled to Liverpool on the 21st of February for the first leg of a Champions League last 16 tie, but manager Carlo Ancelotti said Benzema's injury was very light. Before we end the news, here's a recap of our top stories. Gunmen have murdered Nnaemeka Ugboma, the chairman of Ejimekuru Customary Court in the Oguta local government area of Imo State. Ahead of the 2023 general election, Justice Inyang Ekwo of the Federal High Court in Abuja has ordered the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) to accept the nominations of candidates of the Labour Party in 24 states of the Federation. On the foreign scene, Vladimir Putin has compared Russia's invasion of Ukraine to the fight against Nazi Germany in a speech to mark the 80th anniversary of the conclusion of the Battle of Stalingrad. You can follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. That ends Spring News on Western Spring Television. I am Okwayemiwani. Thanks for watching.